I can't describe in words how I feel right now after everything that has happened in my life. I feel like my trust in people won't come back for a long time. It's a terrible feeling, but let's start over. It all started when I met an old friend, an acquaintance from years ago. That meeting changed my life dramatically. Barney, my college buddy, called me out of the blue. He was in town on business related to a temporary project and suggested we meet. We agreed to have a drink together. My amazement reached a climax when he casually admitted that he had spent the last 2 weeks with my wife. I told him calmly, "Until I'm done drinking, you have a chance to run away. But rest assured, I'll catch up with you and you won't like it." Barney swallowed his saliva hard but didn't go anywhere. He admitted, "I'm sorry, I didn't realize she was your wife. I would never betray you, friend. She said she was single and looking for fun. In fact, Barney and I weren't even close friends. We were just roommates at university and had to put up with each other." He was studying chemistry while I was closer to another subject. After the first year, he kind of hung out with our group, but always kept to himself. Barney was fine, but his intense stare always bothered me. Honestly, I was uncomfortable being around him. We even went on a group vacation after university and I had to share a room with Barney. It was far from a good experience. I don't remember much from that trip. A terrible hangover and having to recover for days. There was a heavy silence at the table. I clutched my glass tightly. Barney looked noticeably paler than usual, but he didn't leave his seat. "I can't believe what you're saying. Stephanie would never betray me, especially with you. She's always been faithful from the moment we got married," I said. "And by the way, thanks for not inviting me to this," Barney replied. "I only invited close friends. You included everyone from our group except me. Is this your revenge for not being at our wedding 6 years ago?" I asked. "Did you concoct that lie about my wife because you're still angry? I haven't seen you in 10 years, you pathetic. Perhaps none of this would have happened if you had invited me over." "I would have recognized her," Barney replied and held out his phone to me. On the screen were pictures of Stephanie looking inappropriate. She was smiling at the camera, wearing unfamiliar underwear. Barney flipped through some more pictures of the two of them together, and her cheerful eyes were looking straight into the lens. It bothered me because our relationship had always been satisfying. Neither of us felt unsatisfied, so I struggled to accept it. My love for her was deep, and I believed in reciprocating love. I trusted Stephanie and our union too much to give in to this deception. "Nice tried, Barney. Your blatant fakes are impressive, but you can't fool me. I know Stephanie. I believe in her," I said sternly. "Okay, I'll prove it. Tell her you're working late. I'm sure you do that sometimes. Otherwise, Steph wouldn't have a chance to meet me," he continued. My heart cringed when he called her Steph. She hated it when people didn't use her full name. I'd made that mistake once and never made it again. I should have punched him then, but instead I decided to honor his request, if only to keep him quiet long enough for me to finish him off after talking to Stephanie. Barney picked up his phone and started the conversation. "Hey, Steph, when can I see you again? Tonight? I'll be there in 15 minutes. Don't forget to give Humphrey one of those pills I gave him. Put it in the cheese. You know how much he hates me. If you give it to him now, he'll be asleep when I get there. You better not lie to me. If you hurt Stephanie or drugged my dog, you'll wish you'd never been born," I countered. "I didn't. I'm just trying to show you who Stephanie is because you refuse to believe me. I'm sorry. I didn't know she was anyone's wife, especially yours." "Sorry, buddy, but you deserve better," Barney replied. "Humphrey will be fine. He won't accept me for some reason, just barks and growls every time he sees me. Well, at least he's loyal to you, unlike some people. This pill won't hurt him, it just induces peaceful sleep. Trust me," Barney said, sipping his drink. "Give me 15 minutes and then come home. I'll make sure we don't cross any boundaries. I couldn't do that to you now that I know the truth. I'm just trying to protect you from that lying woman." "How noble of him," I growled. He walked away abruptly, leaving me sitting there perplexed. I couldn't shake the feeling that he might be lying. Then it occurred to me that maybe this was all a joke organized by the guys. They might have involved Barney in this venture. His desire to return to the band after being away for so many years might have motivated him to play along. It seemed plausible. I didn't rule out the possibility that they might pop up and surprise me when I got home. That's why Barney said he wouldn't go too far tonight. Stephanie wouldn't go too far for a joke. These guys almost had me fooled. Feeling somewhat relieved, I finished my drink and headed home. Walking through the back door, I almost expected to see a crowd of people ready to greet me. Humphrey, curled up in his basket, was unusually quiet. That began to worry me again. The hallway was silent except for the distant music. When I entered the living room, I was struck by an unexpected sight. Barney was standing in front of the fireplace with his pants down to his ankles. Stephanie, about to continue, was suddenly distracted. The broken mirror surprised them both, and she accidentally bit Barney. Shards of glass and jewelry fell on them. They began to scream. I stood motionless, watching the scene unfolding before me. My limbs refused to obey. Barney collapsed to the ground and Stephanie, surrounded by shards of glass, looked at me in disbelief. "It's not what you think, stop," she shouted. "Is that the best excuse you can come up with? Do you have any explanation as to why you did this to my old friend Barney?" I objected. I spat at Barney, unable to keep the words out of my mouth, turned and picked Humphrey up. Cribbing him and getting him to the vet became my only concern. He was the only one that mattered at that moment. The vet was exceptionally helpful despite the late hour. Although we couldn't pinpoint what he had ingested, Humphrey seemed stable, only slipping into a deep sleep. We decided it was best for him to stay overnight for observation. Upon returning home, I found Stephanie sitting alone in the kitchen. "Yeah, Barney didn't take you with him considering I don't need you anymore. Now get out of my sight," I said. "Where's Humphrey?" She asked nervously. "Thanks to you, I had to take him to the vet. They're keeping him there for observation. If he gets hurt, you don't want to see my reaction. It'll be a lot worse than a divorce. Trust me." "Divorce? I don't want a divorce. We'll get through this. It was just a mistake. We can fix it," she was saying. "No, we can't. I don't give second chances. Not even to you," I replied. I packed my suitcase. "Where are you going?" Stephanie cried. "You didn't even let me explain." "What explanation could there possibly be, Stephanie? If I'm going to address you as Steph, like all your ex-boyfriends?" "I don't have boyfriends, and he's not even my boyfriend." "If you let me explain," she said. "I'm going to spend the night at a hotel. You'd better be at your mother's tomorrow when I get home from work, unless you plan on moving in with Barney." I slammed the door so hard it shook as I headed for the car. Barney appeared. "Where are you going?" "To spend the night at a hotel while she packs her stuff. You can take her if you want. Since I don't want her, I don't want her. That's not the point. I just wanted you to believe me about her true nature. Don't go to the hotel. Stay with me. This is all my fault. Let me make it up to you. I was just trying to protect you," he was saying. I grinned. "That's cool, but that didn't stop you from stepping in as soon as you found out." She was pretty convincing, and it seemed like the best way for me to prove it to you. "I'm glad you did. I know it will help me now." I stashed the bag in the trunk of my car and then struck as hard as I could. It had been ages since I'd last struck someone. The pain was back, but the way he went down with one punch was worth it. He should have counted himself lucky that I stopped and didn't knock him down completely. I left him lying in the driveway, thinking about what awaited him after he ruined my marriage and life. After the impact, I drove out of the garage, catching a glimpse of Stephanie in the rearview mirror. I almost expected her to rush over to Barney, however, she pulled the curtains shut. The next morning, I went to the vet and was relieved to find that Humphrey had not been seriously harmed by lunchtime. I was able to pick him up and return him to the office where he nestled under my desk. If I had neglected Stephanie, we wouldn't have spent so much time together, quality time. That's what made her betrayal so confusing. I lay awake last night, heartbroken, in the hotel. When I got home with Humphrey, Stephanie was nowhere to be seen. She'd left a brief note saying she'd gone to see her mom. "When you're ready to talk," she wrote in disgust at the situation. I crumpled up the note and threw it in the trash. She would be waiting for this conversation for a long time, feeling ashamed. I realized I needed the support of my friends. I turned to Oliver and told him about the incident. He was the last of us to get married, and his husband Connor vowed to let the others know. His reaction seemed almost as stunned as mine. "Damn it, Barney, what was she thinking?" Later, after a few shots of whiskey, the rest of the group started calling or texting. I had a serious discussion with Callum, who lived nearby and often chatted with us, and his wife Laura. "Look, I understand if this doesn't change anything for you, but I think you should talk to Stephanie." She trusted Laura. I'm not sure exactly what was said, But Laura claims there's more to the story. She's mad at Stephanie because of you, but insists there's more to it than meets the eye. All she tells me is that it wasn't an affair, whatever that means. I'm not thrilled that she's not saying more, but she insists you hear it firsthand. The conversation was interrupted by a knock on the door, and to my disbelief, I found Barney standing outside with 2 black eyes and an obviously broken nose. I just want you to know that I had no part in this. I realize you were upset and pounced, so I won't press charges. I still hope we can salvage our friendship despite our distance. We cared for each other. Are you serious? I could never be friends with you after what you did. You've made me disgusted. I can't erase the image of the 2 of you from my mind. Leave before I decide to do more harm. He flinched and backed away, but he didn't leave. I'll give you some space, but remember that I'm here for you once you've cooled off. I'll always consider you a friend. I'll always worry about you. As I closed the door, I couldn't help but wonder if he'd been dealing with some mental issues this week, since I hadn't heard from Stephanie. I decided to consult a lawyer about the divorce. While the prospects were not ideal, it lay in my financial ability. Fortunately, my business would not be affected as it was structured to remain solely mine. However, Stephanie would likely receive a significant portion of the profits as alimony unless I could prove her higher earnings. I decided not to take on any additional work. What good will it do? I thought. Friday night, I got a call from my mother-in-law, Maureen. We had always had a good relationship. I often called her mom, especially because my parents had been physically absent for a long time, busy with life in Spain. I always felt a special affection for Maureen. "Hi, love, I've been worried about you," Mom said to Stephanie. "I wanted to give you time and not touch you, but I can't help but worry. Are you watching yourself? Aren't you overdoing it with the alcohol? I hope you don't mind if I come over. I could make you some lasagna. I know it's your favorite." Her unintentional display of kindness, love, and concern made me cry. "Oh, my dear, I'll come as soon as I can," she said. After her arrival, she used her spare key to enter. I had forgotten to change the locks. I soon found myself in her arms, letting her comfort me as if I were a child who had fallen off her bike and scraped her knee. "My silly girl, she hurt you? I've always valued you as my own child, and I'm mad at her, I really am. How could she be so heartless?" she asked. I wondered. I believed she loved me as much as I loved her. I thought we would start a family soon. "I understand, darling, and she loves you very much. She wouldn't have spent a whole week crying with me if she didn't. But her actions were stupid, not cruel," Maureen was saying. "How can you say that? Laura mentioned something like that about Callum because she trusts him with Laura. She explained what happened and why she acted like that. That's why I don't forgive her behavior, and she knows it. She behaved recklessly, but I know she loves you and only you. It's best if you talk to her as soon as possible. She needs to explain herself to you directly," she said. She heated up the lasagna and advised me to drink lots of water. "No alcohol until we get everything sorted out," she insisted. "It's going to be a while before the divorce is finalized," I muttered. "Don't jump to conclusions, it might not come to that," Maureen said quietly. "But remembering that you're not divorcing me, I'll still be here for you as a second mother. I'll arrange for you to talk to Stephanie at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning," she announced and left before I could protest. I slept better than I had in days, but I still got up early and paced around the house, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. My heart dropped when I saw Stephanie. She looked even worse than I did, with dull hair and a drained face despite her attempted makeup. "I'm so sorry. I sincerely apologize. Please let me explain. I'll tell you everything and then I'll leave. You won't even have to answer. I just need you to know the truth." I nodded, remaining silent. The conversation was clearly under her control. "I first met Barney about a month ago at a car dealership. He started talking to me and then noticed my last name. When he found out I was your wife, he was visibly upset. Told me how close he used to be with your circle and how you suddenly cut ties with him, leaving him perplexed. He complained how much he missed everyone, especially you. Speaking of you in enthusiastic terms, I couldn't help but feel sorry for him. It seemed to him that you held a significant place in his life compared to his presence in yours. Although you mentioned him several times and I saw the pictures, his vulnerability made me sympathize. When the day was coming to an end and you mentioned working late, he suggested a quick drink. I didn't see anything wrong with that and thought maybe he'd share some of your old secrets. could playfully tease you later. He was pleasant company, though a bit odd. His tendency to stare at me worried me, but overall he was cordial. I only had one drink, and that's all I remember from that first meeting. The next morning I woke up in his hotel bed, realizing what had happened between us. My initial instinct was to get up and go to the authorities for help, to get tested to prove he drugged me. But then he came back into the room with a smile and said, "I think you liked it." He put on the soundtrack from a video he had recorded. I sounded like I loved it, and I didn't mind. It was horrible. Who would believe me now? How could anyone believe me? I realized I had fallen into a predator's trap. "You can trust me, I'd go to the police with you," he said. I knew he was right, but you'll never see me the same. Doubt will always remain hell. Even I was beginning to doubt myself. I could still go to the authorities, especially when the substances were still in my system. But then he revealed his trump card. He said he wasn't just stalking me. He was too good at stalking you, naturally. If he hurt you, he hurt me too. Let me be clear. When you were on vacation with your friends, he did the same thing to you. He gave you illegal substances, videotaped you, and took pictures. He showed them to me. Do you remember you mentioned that on that trip, you had the worst hangover of your life? You didn't seem to like it. You didn't sound like yourself at that moment. I rushed to the sink and then went back to my breakfast. When he comforted me by stroking my back, I didn't push him away. You witnessed the whole thing. Yeah, I realized you didn't know anything. I didn't want you to know about all of this, about him, about how it affects both of us. That's why he really took advantage of both of us, isn't it? When he suggested that you'd be indifferent if I saw him a few more times while he was here, I thought it was a small sacrifice for your peace of mind. He had already done things to me that would haunt me, but I could still protect you. He assured me that you would never find out, and he would provide me with all the videos and pictures. You didn't believe him, of course, but I felt I had few options, didn't I? Yes, you did have options. I'd rather know than make you do what you did to see you interact with him like that, I said. I didn't think he'd admit it to you. I honestly believed he would. He seemed oddly fixated on you and just wanted to be your friend. So your friend took advantage of me. How many times have you two dated? I asked. A couple times a week for the last few weeks, 6 times in total. He drugged me every time, not just the first time. It was always here at our house after the first time. Yes, but never in our bed. I wouldn't do that with you. He didn't mind doing it in the living room on the carpet. I think he got off because he did it here and you'll never know. What about Humphrey? I asked. Well, the first time he went after him, he gave him sleeping pills afterward. He promised me it wouldn't hurt him, she replied. No, it wouldn't hurt, I said. However, you seem to trust your abuser's words very much and absolutely distrusted your husband. I had a shock, a terrible shock. But I hope that in time we can get over it. You see, I did it for us, for you. I'll go back to my mom. I'm not her favorite person right now, but I'll be there for you when you want to talk. Just remember how much I love you. Don't let him win. He did it to ruin us, didn't he? Why else would he be telling you this? I don't know his plan, but don't let it work, she pleaded. She kissed my cheek and ruffled Humphrey's forelock as she left. With her departure, a piece of my heart left, leaving me unsure. Would I be able to heal from this? I adored her, but I doubted if I could move past the betrayal. She had kept an important detail from me, just as I had kept something from her. Later that day, the whole team arrived: Callum, Oliver, James, and Harry. Despite the fact that some had come from the other side of the country, they dropped everything to support me. It was a display of true camaraderie. Over a few beers, I told them Stephanie's revelation. They shared my shock, especially about the events of our recent vacation. Strange, Callum remarked. He never got on with us, despite our best efforts. He never really got on. I realized what Stephanie meant. It's clear now that he wasn't interested in fitting in with us. He just wanted to be your friend. That realization sent a shiver down my spine. What was his motive for breaking up with me and Stephanie? Harry asked. Who knows, Oliver replied, but I can't shake the feeling that it was more about you than Stephanie, just because we lost touch. Harry said. No, explained Oliver, it's deeper than it seems. Remember how eager he was to act as a supportive friend? He didn't want you to be alone, wanted to be there for you as a friend. Harry added thoughtfully, he ruins your marriage by acting as a supportive friend, and then imagines you fall in love and you ride off into the sunset together. Who knows what this guy is up to, but I'm sure it won't end well for him. James growled. Excuse me, Oliver interrupted. I'm gay here, and we don't need any more drama. We need Connor's opinion on this matter. Can he join us? Callum said. He's already here, mate. Just waiting at the hotel. Didn't want to impose. Oliver nodded. Please give him a call. He's practically family since he married you, Harry insisted. He'll be happy to help. You have no idea how, Oliver agreed, and I figured we could use his help. When Connor arrived, we strategized. I had already made a decision about Barney and Stephanie. That evening we invited Barney over to our place. I think he was expecting to meet me alone. There was a look of surprise on his face when he saw the rest of the band. Oh, the whole gang's reunited, just like old times, he said, hoping it was just you and me. He looked at me intently. We have a lot to talk about. Can't we discuss this as friends? I offered him a drink and he quickly agreed. It was clear that the presence of so many people made him nervous. So I began. Stephanie shared her version of what happened. Perhaps you'd like to share yours. I already told you, he stepped toward me. She said she was divorced and asked if I wanted to have some fun. Once I realized you were her husband, I confessed everything to you. You know I would never intentionally hurt you. You mean a lot to me. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, wistfully remembering our trip. You think that trip with the guys when you were severely hungover was just because of the alcohol. That was a long time ago, and yes, we were close on that trip. You asked me to keep it between us, but you knew what happened and enjoyed it. You said you loved me, and then I loved you too. I could barely stand you. I despise you now, I replied. Trust me, you loved it, he said. I didn't even know it happened, I parried. You're just upset, he continued. I know that's not what you meant. I saw that you were a little out of sorts, so I decided to help you relax a little. I knew that if I could get you to relax, you'd reveal your true feelings and have some fun. That's exactly what happened. That night in your arms was the happiest night of my life. I've replayed it in my head countless times. I know you have too. I sat in shocked silence. Barney was obviously struggling with some deep-seated psychological issues. He seemed to harbor feelings for me that I didn't even realize I had. So what was your plan? Callum asked Barney, speaking slowly to hide his growing horror. I needed to end him and Stephanie. It was her fault. She interfered. She stole him from me. Don't you see? He continued. I think I do, Harry said. You could have been the hero who exposed her for what she is. You thought I would forgive you, but not her, I said with growing anger. I knew deep down that I was the one you really loved, not her. I knew that messing with her was risky. I knew it would hurt you. I knew you'd be jealous if you saw me with her. But I also knew that once you realized that it allowed you to be with me, you'd see that it was worth it. Absolutely insane, Oliver muttered. And yet, you had to drug her, just like you did with me, just for the first time with her. I hate to say it, but she really got into it without much coaxing, he said, not noticing our friends. Straining his gaze, he shifted it to me. I'm not making excuses, he began. She was thrilled. She even approached me a couple times. I had to do it, but I didn't enjoy it. It was a means to an end. I only wanted you. I always wanted only you. There was silence in the room after that admission. Stephanie wouldn't do that, Harry remarked. I have her messages, Barney said, holding out his phone to me. All the proof was there. She had expressed her desire to meet him after the first meeting. There was no coercion. She seemed to be enjoying their secret affair, perhaps even more than he was. You know, Callum put in, the behavior has a name. It's called traumatic bonding. I don't think you know, Barney said, not hiding his surprise. Oliver glanced at me. I don't, I replied, remembering that I had witnessed it with my own eyes. I've been married to her for years, and I know her behavior when she's involved in something. I could tell she was enjoying it with him. I couldn't deny it. Barney interjected, I've been honest with you. Surely that must mean something. Well, I said it would certainly be noted in court, didn't I, Connor? I called out to Connor as he came in from the kitchen. Have you met my husband, Connor Barney? Oliver added. Detective Inspector Connor O'Brien confirmed. Did you hear everything? I asked Connor. Yes, I heard it all, he confirmed, turning to Barney and outlining his rights. No, you can't. Don't let them take me away. We need to be together. I did it for you. It was ironic. Stephanie said the same thing. I whispered as I felt the embrace of my remaining friends. You know, Oliver remarked. Both you and Stephanie were Barney's victims. We were, but despite her objections, she may have been forced the first time, but she willingly came back. She begged for more. You've seen the messages. Yes, but still no. She should have trusted me. Instead, she found a way to indulge in something else and made a convenient excuse for it. You want to know what I saw when I caught them together? Isn't that the last piece of the puzzle? I asked. The others nodded. She's thoroughly enjoying what's going on. There was no compulsion, suggested Callum. Perhaps she was just trying to cope with a horrible situation. That may be so, but would you ever be able to forgive Laura if you caught her with another man? Would you ever be able to get over it, knowing that she wants to do it again? I asked. No, Callum admitted, I don't think I could. That's it, Harry remarked. Are you going to let his triumph tear you apart? He asked. Oh, Harry, we are all losers here. There are no winners. Perhaps I acted hastily when I decided to give up so quickly, but I knew there was no turning back for me. Yes, I knew she was attacked first. We were both attacked, but we didn't remember anything about it. However, she went back to him, and while you may call me insensitive, I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't ignore the messages, the deception. It wasn't something I could put up with in my life. Love doesn't have to be so complicated, at least in my life. Divorce seemed like the only way out. Barney was taken into custody and was found in possession of a package of documents proving his identity, including compromising videos and photos. The thought that other people might have witnessed his sexual assault on me threw me off balance, but they were professionals. I had just been informed that it had happened. I didn't remember anything about it, and I was immensely grateful for that. I don't think it's ever happened before, and I think it's for the best. Barney has been declared mentally incompetent to stand trial. He's in jail and unlikely to ever recover. He lives in self-inflicted agony. His affection for me persists. They say he cries for me every night. Morin informs me that Stephanie still mourns for me and grieves for what she has lost. Stephanie confessed to her mother that she found pleasure in the forbidden nature of her encounters with Barney. She felt no affection for him, but she enjoyed showing her more adventurous side with him. This side of her character had not been explored between us before. She had discovered a desire she didn't even know existed and found submitting to Barney arousing, even though she didn't physically like him. The thought of her justifying her actions by saying she was doing it for me still makes me cringe. That feeling will probably stay with me forever. Stephanie is in therapy to further understand this aspect of her personality and is still hoping that we will reconcile after the divorce. I, on the other hand, have a quiet life. Humphrey and I are doing well, and I believe I will find love again someday. It's bound to happen, and I need it for myself.
Thank you so much for watching my video and your time. Please subscribe to my channel and click on the bell button. Also, I am very interested to know your personal opinion about this story. You can write it in the comments. I will definitely read it and reply to you personally.